Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for today's multi-cloud live stream. Just a reminder, if you are joining us, that these are taking place every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where we're featuring new speakers and topics. The recordings are also hosted on the VMware Cloud YouTube channel, so you can watch them on demand. We encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with the latest. Today, we are excited to have both Jeff and Doug here with David and me today. So if you both don't mind just introducing yourselves and what we'll be talking about today.
And tell us also how we all wound up in the same room.
With our white doors.
White doors. Hi, everyone. Jeff Eberhard. I'm here with Oracle. I'm part of the Oracle Cloud VMware Solution team. And I'll let Doug introduce himself in just a second. But what we're going to be talking about today is Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, which we'll shorten to OCVS, and the fact that it's an amazing solution, not just for your Oracle applications, but for any applications that are running on VMware that you're interested in moving to the cloud. So we're excited.
And some people might know that Jeff is VMware alumni who's now at Oracle.
Yeah, so is Doug, interestingly. So we got
okay, cool. I thought you looked familiar, Doug.
And with that, I'll quickly introduce myself and send it back over to Jeff. Pleasure to be here, everyone. My name is Doug Evans, part of the Oracle Cloud VMware Solution team under Jeff, and I'm one of the solution architects here that helps folks with the pre-sales all the way to the implementation and delivery of the Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, or OCVS. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff and get PowerPoint up and going.
Awesome. So while Doug's getting PowerPoint up and going, the key thing about Oracle Cloud VMware Solution is the fact that it is VMware, right? So we in Oracle Cloud infrastructure have these beefy, what we call dense IO 52 servers, but they're just servers, right? So it's an Intel processor, number of cores, 768 gigs of RAM, a bunch of NVMe storage. But on top of that is running the standard VMware stack that you're used to. So we've got vSphere Enterprise Plus, we've got NSXT Enterprise, and we've got vSAN, right? So it's all of the same infrastructure that you run on premises, just running in Oracle's cloud. Now, what does that mean for you? And where is it a little bit differentiated from a cloud perspective? Well, number one, it is customer choice. And so Doug's going to walk you through some of that as we show in the demo here in just a few minutes. But you have the opportunity to run the version of VMware that you're looking to run. Also, because you're running it in your own secure private tenancy, you have the ability to install first, second, and third-party tools to manage the environment the exact same way that you do on premises. In addition, it's sitting in Oracle Cloud. So if you've been looking at Oracle Cloud for high-performance computing or functions or storage or any of the other things that are available in Oracle Cloud, this sits there as a first-class citizen on the same layer 2 network as all of those other options, which means your applications are going to run extremely quickly, and they're going to be completely secure because they're in effectively your own virtual data center. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you're going to see today. Doug is going to be doing a demonstration for you. He told me I could jump in and cut in if at any point he missed anything, but I don't think that'll happen. So Doug, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Yeah, sounds great, Jeff. Thank you for that kind introduction. The one thing I do want to add on to what Jeff was just mentioning is, with our security nature in mind, when we're referring to the different security features out there with Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, we're one of the first offerings for VMware to receive the FedRAMP high authorization for our public sector folks as well. And I'll be going over some of the differentiating factors for just our actual physical infrastructure layer as well. So let me get PowerPoint back up here. And before I hop into the demo, I do want to just provide a brief architecture overview of how we help folks onboard and begin their cloud journey here at Oracle. So, for folks that are listening in, this box here on the left, we'll think of that as our customer data center, right? We may have multiple clusters running vSphere and other workloads. We have a router that's connecting us out to different services, the internet, WAN, wherever it's going. And when folks are starting to look at OCVS, the first thing we figure out is which region we want to place our workload in. So we'll go ahead and lay that down. Today we'll be in the San Jose region. So think of that as where we want our services and infrastructure to reside. And here at Oracle, one of the benefits of OCVS is that it's available in all of our commercial regions and our GovCloud regions as well. So we have OCVS available all over the globe at this point. And we have a roadmap publicly available where it shows what regions were available today. Next, we'll go ahead and we'll create what we call a virtual cloud network. And that's pretty much simply stated going in and carving out our piece of the Oracle Cloud infrastructure and the networking, where we want all of our different services and applications and bare metal instances and VMware, et cetera, to reside. And at the same time, we'll go ahead and think about which availability domain we'd like our services to be implemented in, right? Similar to picking up which physical data center we want our services to run back in the traditional data center days. Same thing in the cloud. Our regions, some regions have 3 ADs, other regions have a single AD, and we go ahead and select that as well. Next, we're going to go ahead and configure access into our environment. So one of the things we help folks do is when they're first onboarding in, is we start talking about best practices on how to access the environment. So we could, instead of opening up RDP and port 3389 to the internet, we go ahead and create what's called a public subnet, so an internet-facing IP address space, and we deploy a Bastion service or a Bastion host. It's a small, very small Linux VM, and it utilizes SSH as opposed to password, username and password. So we go ahead and create almost like a second way of accessing the environment. So once we have our connectivity deployed, customer router to our router in the cloud, either Fast Connect or VPN, what happens if this connection goes down, right? And we still want to be able to access into our environment. That's where this Bastion comes into place. So when we're off network, we have a secure means of accessing not only Oracle Cloud infrastructure, but Oracle Cloud VMware Solution or OCVS as well. And then I'm going to skip through these or speed up these last two here, and we'll hop into the demo. But lastly, we'd go ahead and deploy out our SDDC as well. So I'm going to skip over this. Just know that we start with 3 hosts as a minimum. And again, like talking about that flexibility Jeff was referring to earlier, HCX is optional, right? So we don't need to worry about HCX if we're not going to use it. We've had some customers in the past utilize Site Recovery Manager for their migrations instead of HCX, vSphere replication, et cetera. There's numerous different tools available to migrate and onboard your workloads into OCVS. And with that said, let me go ahead and give me one moment here. I'm going to log into our console.
Appreciate it. And just something to call out real quick on the Fast Connect while Doug's getting that in there. A unique differentiator that we have from a Fast Connect perspective is it allows you unlimited egress over that Fast Connect. So it's ingress and egress at the same cost, right? So no additional cost for that. So for those of you looking to set up a hybrid cloud where you know data is going to be moving back and forth between on-premises and the cloud in a consistent manner, you don't have to worry about budgeting for that because all of that's built in. So there you go. Like you
great point. Yeah, no, that's a great call out, Jeff. Yeah, so I'm now logged into the console. And for those who have never logged in before, you could see up here in the top right, I'm in Phoenix. I want to hop on over to San Jose. So now I'm logged into the San Jose region. I'm going to go ahead and click over on the hamburger, as we call it here at Oracle. It's the menu on the top left. And I'm going to go ahead and show how quickly and easily we can deploy out OCVS cluster, and at the same time highlight some of our differentiating factors in regards to the network architecture and the flexibility we provide our customers when they're first deploying out the cluster. So you can see here, this demo lab 7 is what we'll actually log into in a few moments.
And I think just worth pointing out here that you're right now in Oracle Cloud. I mean, you're
correct. I didn't show me logging in because I wanted to hide my tenancy ID.
Right.
But correct, David. Yeah, I'm logged in to Oracle Cloud right now and could go ahead and deploy out different pieces of infrastructure. Correct.
Yeah,
so
the reason I bring that up is because, there's always this question of like, where am I living, in what console, so forth, and that like when you're setting up an SDDC, you're obviously, that's a service being offered through Oracle. So you're going to go into Oracle and create that. And then, when you're operating it, that's when you're sort of looking at it through the common VMware lens, basically, right?
You nailed it, David. You nailed it. And exactly. So you can see here we have our bastion I was referring to earlier in the architecture diagram. This is what I'll be SSHing into to then connect to this jump host down here to gain access to the VMware environment. So I'm going to go through actually how we would connect if we were a customer gaining access to the cluster off network. Exactly. So with that said, let me go back to the VMware solution. And we're going to quickly whip through this first screen here. We'll just and test. The one thing I wanted to call out right away, again, is the flexibility. HCX, you can see here, is a checkbox, and we allow both advanced and enterprise. But if we don't want to utilize it and don't want the cluster to come with HCX installed and have it eating up those resources that it does, it's a small amount anyways, but just keep things simple. If we're not utilizing it, freedom of flexibility, uncheck HCX. More importantly, we also allow for the freedom and choice of vSphere versions. With OCVS being a customer managed solution, it's the freedom to pick the version of vSphere that best suits your organization. Maybe you have a disaster recovery use case and you want it on the latest and greatest in 7 and utilize EVC mode and things like that. Perfect, go for it. Maybe you're a shop that has legacy workloads residing on 6.5, and those legacy workloads are very important, but at the same time, we're getting out of the data center. Lift and shift those to OCVS and spin up a cluster running 6.5 and keep that alive as long as VMware supports it. So
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, because that is a big consideration when you're sort of thinking about setting up whenever you're moving workloads, right? Which is, first you have this issue of like, it's a different environment. So this is solved by having VMware, but then also you have this issue of like, am I on the right version and all that? So I think that's a nice point, that you have flexibility there.
Yeah, agreed. Pricing interval, we're going to skip over that. We have freedom of flexibility in pricing, right? Hourly, monthly. So for the folks wanting disaster recovery and to use the cloud elasticity, we allow for folks to add more hosts on an hourly basis. And then when the disaster is over, pull the hosts out. So you're getting that cloud elasticity for both the compute hardware and the VMware licensing that's included in the offering, right? So you can burst up and down. Let me go ahead and just grab an SSH key here so we can get to the next screen. And okay, so on this screen, I'm sure, for folks that have looked at other VMware cloud solutions, grabbing a contiguous IP address space, is typically how the clusters are deployed. So, you may ask for like a /21 or an IP address space that has thousands of contiguous IP addresses. We offer that as well. But we also allow the ability to bring your own subnets and VLANs to the offering. So we've had customers in the past come to us and say, hey, it's great. You can carve out a /21, but our security team didn't like that. We already have tools and policies in place for certain octets, and those octets are already configured into our policies. And with the nature of it's VMware, bring your own tools and skill sets, we also allow folks to bring their own octets over too. So if you have vMotion on a certain octet, storage, networking, whatever the subnet or VLAN is, we can preload that ahead of time and utilize that to go ahead and configure out the environment. We've seen this time and time again now with our customers choosing to go this route and customize every network as opposed to having the wizard on the back end just auto-magically deploy out the infrastructure. I think I saw a question pop up. Yeah, are we doing that at the end, or sorry?
I'll hit it real quick. So the question was, do we have any native Oracle tools to help move workloads from VMware to OCVS? Not really, right? So from a database perspective, there are things like Golden Gate and Data Pump that you can use to move databases. But from a VMware perspective, frankly, using HCX or using vMotion, honestly, is just the best way to go, right? Why create something new when VMware's created it? And it's already included in the cost of the solution. So
right, that's a good point, which is we're talking about you're effectively running a VMware environment. These are all tools that would be familiar to you, so you would expect if you'd use the same things, right?
Exactly.
I'd keep additional complexity.
That said, if you're a customer that's using a third-party tool like Zerto or Veeam, and that's how you're doing things now, those are supported as well. So if you want to use something that maybe isn't a VMware branded tool, but is through one of the third parties like Commvault, Zerto, Veeam, etc., we're happy to help you, use those as well because they just run on VMware just like anything on-prem does.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. All right, so continuing on, we'll end on this screen here for the magic of being able to customize your networks before you deploy your cluster out. The last thing I wanted to highlight before we dig into logging into the solution is just providing what the homepage looks like. So we're still in the OCI console at this point, and you can see here we've deployed out an OCVS cluster running 7.0 update 2. HCX is enabled. It provides our IP addresses, username, passwords. You can see our pricing interval, etc. More importantly, I want to click on the SDDC networks here and just go over one thing that's very important. So before I talk about it, let's bring back up the slide real quick. So a little bit of how the physical architecture works here. So when we have virtual machines running in NSXT, so on the network inside of OCVS, these VMs go out the host, right? And either communicate back on premise to the internet, wherever they're going, and they go out an uplink. So going back to, let me get my website back up here, Chrome I mean. So going back to that uplink, we provide 2 physical uplinks out of the OCVS environment. The first uplink, as you can sort of see here in the tooltip, is where all the communication happens between the OCVS cluster and the OCI infrastructure. And on top of that, we provide a separate second uplink. And the second uplink can be customized for your business or use case. So we've had some customers choose not to use it. We've had other customers utilize it for the same use case you can see here, where they're deploying out public-facing applications, meaning these VMs back here have public IP addresses from the internet, or that the internet, or public IP addresses, I'm trying to say, and they want those all that traffic and communication to go out its same wire. So we can go ahead and customize that uplink too for that. And another option we have is for DMZ environments. And I happen to have a blog that I wanted to highlight real quick from my colleagues Praveen Vakalam and Vinay Rao from Oracle Cloud VMware Solution team here. Hi guys, if you're listening in. But they helped one of our customers, a larger one of our customers that had a strict use case where they wanted their DMZ environment to go out its own uplink for filtering and monitoring purposes. So Vinay and Praveen were able to assist them and create a second set of NSX infrastructure, still managed under the same management of it, but have the DMZ environment be completely separate from the production and dev test workloads, and also go out its own wire to back to the internet. So again, it's that freedom of choice and that flexibility that comes with our solution, and being able to customize it for your use case and not be locked into a predefined solution that you can't really, manipulate too much.
Nice plug, Doug. Hey, just want to make a point here because I think we've talked about this, and you may get to this, but there's some time involved in deploying an SDDC, right? Because it's not like you're spinning up a VM; you're building a data center, basically, right? So it's like,
correct.
And then once you're in the environment, spinning up a VM is like, as instantaneous as you were doing it in your own data center, that sort of thing. But I think it's important because I know everybody has this notion of like instantaneous everything, right? But it's like that's easy if you're doing a VM. If you're actually building a complete data center, it still takes some time. Maybe you guys could comment on that.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd like to add. First, when you're talking about the VM migrations, before we even talk about how quickly we can build an environment, with this being customer managed, we allow folks to not only configure enterprise link mode, true ELM, so they can share SSO between environments and get them in the same management pane, but we also support content libraries and things of the sort for that too, David. So if a customer already has a bunch of templates created and ISO files and whatever else, we can create a content library sync and sync those right over to OCVS and begin using them. Same goes for VRA. On the physical infrastructure side, we have a couple different ways to deploy the cluster. We can do it through the GUI that I was referring to earlier, or we were demoing earlier, but we also can utilize Terraform too, and we can automate the provisioning of the entire software-defined data center. And that software-defined data center will be available to you in roughly 2.5 hours or so. Jeff, did you have something to add on?
I was going to say, yeah, the SDDC itself takes about 2.5 hours. For most of our customers, they're doing a pilot before they go into production anyway, so it would already be there. But growing is also pretty quick. Adding a host takes under 15 minutes. So, if you have one of those use cases like Doug talked about around disaster recovery, and you're saying, hey, I gotta scale pretty quickly to get things going, you can, right?
I think that's still awesome. 2.5 hours to deploy an entire environment, have it ready, and then be able to start spinning up VMs on, first deploy a host and then spin up the VMs. That's pretty incredible.
And to add on to that, David, it also streamlines, it's all fun and games once you get your cluster deployed, but you also then need to connect it back down premise and get all your firewall rules and security in order, and then going back to the ability to bring your own subnets or octets and networks. You can already have that sort of preloaded. So once the cluster is up and running, connect it over the routers, or connect the routers, I should say, or the routes, and you're off to the races. It really helps cut down on the time it takes your security team to approve everything and get everything open, as we've seen a couple times.
That's cool. Good.
Continuing on?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, sounds good. The last thing I wanted to highlight while we're in here is you can see VLANs here. So inside of Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, sorry, my screen's bugging out here. There we go. And inside of Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, we actually offer VLANs, so layer 2, right? Typical public clouds are built on layer 3, ours included, but we allow layer 2 inside of Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, and I believe soon inside of OCI for certain services as well. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the case. And inside of that, we allow folks to create their own VLANs if they need additional VLANs, but they also can utilize VLAN tagging and create multi-tenancy and that quick deployment that comes with VLANs inside of our offering. So that's another one of those factors that's a little bit different about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and we accomplish that by having these off-box. I don't have them here in the diagram, but picture each one of these hosts having a little network device connected to them, and traffic goes through that smart NIC or that off-box network, and that's how we accomplish not only layer 2, but it also makes our cloud more secure in the fact that if a virtual machine got compromised and there was a hypervisor vulnerability, having the network decoupled from the compute puts a stopgap in between each one of these hosts. So if we were to get a VM infected, it trickled down into the host. This is all hypothetical, right? Our off-box network would stop that from spreading to other hosts, right? And I know, hypervisor vulnerabilities are rare, but it's just another one of those extra layer of security that comes inside of OCI and OCVS specifically that gives our customers a little bit more peace of mind, right, on those bare metal hosts. And with that, let me go ahead and let's log in real quick. So what I'm going to do here is just connect. It's PuTTY. It's a SSH tool. I'm going to go ahead, and you can see I'm just connected to the internet here. No VPN, nothing like that. And we're going to go ahead and bring up the password for my SSH key, OPC. All right, now we're logged in. And now that I'm logged in, I'm at the equivalent on this diagram of I've connected to the bastion, right? So public IP address, right now I'm here. I'm going to then open up RDP and get to the jump host. And then from there on, it'll be like we're all used to at that point, logging into a server and starting to manage our infrastructure.
And again, like Doug said earlier, you can use enhanced link mode on vCenter. So this is if you're off the network, but if you're already on your network and you have a hybrid cloud set up and you're connected to your existing vCenter, if you've set up enhanced link mode, you would just see Oracle Cloud VMware Solution as another data center within your vSphere client.
Correct. We have how-to guides published on that as well, Jeff. So for those folks that want the step-by-step on how to accomplish ELM, it's no different than you would on premise. So it's very straightforward. It actually links back to VMware, but we actually have diagrams too and step-by-step on how to accomplish ELM. So just like that, I've logged in and I'm on a Windows server here that resides in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So this is running as a native compute instance inside of OCI. So if I were to go back to our console and go to compute instances, you could see here, once it loads, 10.0.11 .155. If I go in here just to prove that I'm not making this up.
We believe you.
Yeah. So I'm on the same instance. I'll take Jeff's word. Let's take Jeff's word. And now I'm logged into the environment. And with this being 7.0, you can see the new look and feel of vCenter that changed a little bit. I love the new icons, by the way. But also you can see right away we have updates available. Because again, I've configured internet connectivity for my SDDC. So with 7.0, vCenter is now connecting back to the internet. And you can see that there's updates available. And this is the same vCenter that we're all used to, right?
Yeah.
We could configure link mode. We have full admin access. If I wanted, I could go in here and turn off my host, enter maintenance mode. I could turn on SSH. I can log into the host and install VIBs, VMware installation bundles, just like I would do on premises. It's the same that you're used
to. Now you're sort of in that environment. You're sort of working through it. It just happens to be Oracle Cloud underneath. It could have been your data center. Could have been anything. But
you got it.
One thing to bring up, I know, Doug, you're going to head over to NSX real quick, but some of our customers they don't have NSX or they don't have vSAN, right? So there's not familiarity with that today. But that's okay. It's not required to have NSX and vSAN on premises to be able to use this. Now, if you want to use all the features and functionality, you'll have it and you'll be able to do it. But if you're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to use it. The good thing is all of the basic stuff within vSphere is still the same, even if you have NSX and vSAN, right? So you'll set your policies and you can do all of that. But I wanted to call that out because we have had some customers ask, like, I don't have this on-prem. Does that mean I can't use this or I have to upgrade my on-prem? No, just do what you're doing on-prem. Use what we're providing.
Or not. You may use, do it on-prem and not do it in the cloud for a specific reason.
Exactly.
That's related. There's a question around Oracle VCN versus SDN, sort of where did the sort of one begin and end, that sort of thing. And maybe that's something you could address while we're just talking about NSX. We're going to talk about it more.
Yeah. So, and Doug, you can jump in, but the Oracle VCN is the, I guess you'd call it the layer 2 network that is in existence, if you had the same sort of thing on premises. Within our VCN, we have the ability to add, load balancers and security devices and all sorts of other stuff that you might have exactly the same as you have on-prem. Or you can use the built-in stuff from VMware. So NSX has distributed firewalling and load balancing and all of that. So it really would depend on what you're trying to achieve and what you're using today.
Exactly.
I
was going to say, I think, a lot of this comes down to preference. I mean, there are obviously differences and capabilities that are unique to every offering, but a lot of it comes down to where are you trying to get leverage, right? If you're already using certain things, you want to continue to do that. If you're not using, taking advantage of something that's already there, you're already a big Oracle customer and you're using capabilities there, you might want to do that. It depends, and depends also on the solution you're trying to architect too, right?
Right.
Yeah. And, to add on even more flexibility there, and like Jeff nailed it with load balancers, we have 3 different options right from the get-go with our offering. We have our OCI native load balancer, we have the NSX load balancer that's included, and we have, being customer managed and being able to install third-party, the Avi as well, where you can go in. So there's multiple options, and I'd say the boundary of the NSX SDN ends inside of the VMware environment, right? So that VCN boundary, as opposed to the NSXT boundary, you'd bridge the two when you're trying to communicate with OCI native services, or briefly when you're sending traffic in and out of the environment. But again, if you're doing NSXT policy-based networking, that would flow all the way from the OCVS cluster back to your on-premises environment or wherever the other NSXT environments are. So we wouldn't have to worry about losing our policies when we're bridging the OCVS environment to the OCI native environment.
Good point.
One more question that's in the chat while you're getting to that, which is, sort of restoring a broken VM. It's sort of like it's whatever normal process you sort of would use on premises, right?
Great question, David. So with us being customer managed, say if you're a Commvault shop or whatever backup tool you'd use, we'd recommend setting something similar up inside of our offering. And again, this comes with the beauty and the flexibility of OCVS. vSAN NVMe is not typically what you'd be putting your backups on. So we could go ahead and utilize the cloud native storage, object storage, for example, store our backups on object storage, and then restore them back into VMware if needed. right? And it also allows you to keep utilizing the same backup and restore procedures that you do today on premise,
Right.
and keep your data SOPs and things like that for
Yeah, in a perfect world, you're probably doing disaster recovery to the cloud already. So it's like you can continue that practice because you're already sort of like you've got now you've got everything there in the cloud, and you just continue sort of doing that because that's sort of the the ideal, like is to be able to back up to the cloud and to restore. I mean, to do DR to the cloud or back up to the cloud already. So.
And we actually have a customer right now that's doing primary in the cloud and backup to on-prem because their on-prem stuff was older, right? So they're doing DR, they're doing prod
Okay.
in the cloud and then DR on-prem. And because of the Fast Connect Egress thing, we can send all that data to on-prem all day, and it's not
Right.
costing many
That
extra
makes sense in this particular scenario. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I still think you're taking more risk. Well, it depends on the data centers and whether those are redundant as well, right? So
Right.
it's like
Yeah, data center evacuation use cases are our most complicated, right? Because there's so many ancillary things you need to think about, not just lift and shift, right? With domain services, et cetera. Makes total sense. The last thing I wanted to quickly highlight, I think we have time, right? We're good on time?
yeah, we got a few minutes.
Okay, perfect. What I wanted to highlight here was, we're logged in NSXT. It's a lot to take in. But like what Jeff was referring to at first is, with our team helping folks with the, POCs all the way into the, delivery of production, we help folks with the best way to accomplish their use case. So some folks out there are very straightforward. They're using the default NSXT architecture that's deployed inside of our offering. Other folks are going ahead and customizing it further, like we had with that blog with different uplinks and creating DMZ environments and different gateways, et cetera. But with our offering, we also help folks out with that, and we can go ahead again, because a customer managed solution, utilize things like, if I click on the right thing here, I keep swinging and missing. There we go. Like NSX intelligence. So this isn't configured at this point, but it's installed. But you can see here I have a bunch of uncategorized VMs, but we can utilize NSXT intelligence to help with creating microsegmentation policies for folks and working in conjunction with VRNI for flow analysis and troubleshooting different networking issues that may arise. So we have a couple options there to help folks with their NSXT journey as well at the same time, because typically we're seeing folks when they're going to OCVS, being a little new to NSXT as well. And this is one of those options where, we allow folks to, learn in a little more controlled fashion instead of the chaos at the beginning. So we have a couple tools there available to help folks with their journey as well inside of NSXT. And let's go back to home. And the last thing I wanted to highlight on NSXT again is just, it's not as scary as folks make it out to believe, right? A segment is very similar to a VLAN. And again, our team is here to help folks, going forward when it comes to NSXT and those different issues that come up. Whoops.
If I could expand on the helping, so one thing
Yeah.
that Oracle offers is a service called Cloud Lift, and it's actually included with Oracle Cloud VMware Solutions. And what Cloud Lift is someone like Doug working with you, the customer, to actually make the move into Oracle Cloud VMware Solutions. So some of that's going to be the pre-planning and helping make sure that we set it up correctly. That can include the migration services, so helping actually get these workloads up and running. And then we're also putting together different trainings. Now, VMware has a ton of training, and we would recommend do that if you're looking to get the deep dive on it. But like Doug said, if you've never seen NSX before, we'll spend a couple hours with you and walk you through exactly how and why we did things. And then you say, okay, I want to do all the rest. Awesome. There's, an NSXT VCP class that you can go take. But as part of those Cloud Lift services, getting up into the cloud is just part of it. So we've built out the team with the knowledge and the ability to help you actually do that. So you don't have to go to a third party, or you don't have to learn it on your own. We're here to help support you.
Yeah, and I think even there, I think often the hardest part is just where to start, right? Because once you get going, you get a little bit familiar, you can sort of pick your own, how do I get better at? But I think, having some help in the beginning is really useful, basically.
Same goes for our support. we've, just like everyone, there's issues that come up. And the beauty of being customer managed and us working with VMware is our support does what we call warm handoffs, where we're directly involved with the ticket that's sent over to VMware, and we work, as a team, Oracle and VMware, to get the issues resolved. And it also, on that same point, with it being customer managed, we have flexibility to get things updated and changed at a very rapid pace. It's all, I guess I can't, say time, but like things get changed here pretty quickly, which caught me off guard when I joined the team, as how quickly new features and functionality that customers requested make it to production.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all I had for the demo, Jeff.
Good. No, it's good. Really good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you can see in Doug's background, Tech Jeff E and Virtually Doug E. We came up with those way apart from each other. We had them before we knew each other. But feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. Obviously, David and Lauren, you know how to get a hold of us as well. So if anyone reaches out, but
we're in the same house. How can we not find you?
I know we are. We're all sitting just literally feet away from each other. So, but we appreciate y'all having us on today, and thank you to those of you who have been watching.
It was good. Thanks for coming.
Really thank you guys.
Thanks so much for the time.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it. And everyone, thank you for submitting your questions. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, or you think of one later, feel free to reach out to us or check out more information in the description section on YouTube. And you can find some more information on how to get in touch with some additional resources. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Any final thoughts before we close out?
Just remember, OCVS isn't just for Oracle. So even if you've never used Oracle before and you have a ton of VMware workloads, we're happy to help you out. So.
And one last thing is VMworld is right around the corner. And we're going to have quite a few sessions going on that you'll see sent out on LinkedIn from us, and you may have already come across. So a bunch of us are looking forward to presenting at VMworld as well. Looking forward to seeing you all there too.
Good call.
Absolutely. October 5th, 5 through 7. So hope to see you all there. We're looking forward to it. Thanks again, guys. And we hope to see you next week on Tuesday, where we'll have our next session. So hope to see you guys there. Thanks,
everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thanks, David.
Bye.
Bye.